Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me for Where I'm From 48 with Asha. I hope the Americans who are listening had a good holiday weekend. We had a hot one here. I read In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado. Um, I I thought it was hard to put down. It was so good. I I was blown away by it. I was not disappointed, and I loved the structure and her writing, and it was amazing. And I can't believe I didn't read it sooner, but I didn't. And it was just incredible. Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I mean, pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's early where you are, late where I am. So,
Yes, yes, you are on the East Coast currently.
hmm
hmm
yeah,
So,
for now.
did you want to say anything before we begin? I did want to say that you will be reading your own variation of this prompt and that
Mhm.
it is longer than our usual
Mhm.
poem. So buckle in because it's beautiful and I mean, it's so evocative of a place and a time. And I feel like I'm in that space with you, but it's definitely longer than our usual reading.
Mhm.
So, um, so was this a prompt that the Rumpus put out?
It was, and I did shorten it quite a bit. It's still longer, I think, than what I've heard read
Oh,
on here.
but are
But
you
I,
shortening the one that you sent me, or is the one?
yes,
Oh, you
yeah,
are.
I'm just like, for the sake of this, I
Oh,
felt
okay. Because I was
that
like
was,
ready.
yeah.
Like I'm
It-
listening to this whole
yeah.
thing, and I'm happy to listen to the whole thing because I love it. I just reread it now.
Oh,
Will
thanks.
you send me what you read? So I'll put that in the caption.
Oh, sure. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
cool.
And, but it's the same. It's just cut down.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, but it was a prompt that the Rumpus put out.
Yeah, their prompt was, where do you write from?
hmm
And it seemed, I mean, I feel like where I'm from is also
hmm
where I write
Yeah,
from,
for
so,
sure. I don't know where else you would write from.
right?
I
Yeah.
mean,
Um,
I mean, even if you are writing, because for me, memoir is something I came to later in my life. Even when
mhm.
I was writing, or I still am writing screenplays or fictional pieces, it's still me.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like every character that I write is more me than I would like them to be, even if
hmm
I'm trying to write fiction. So,
hmm Well, I mean, pieces of ourselves, right? And people we've loved and known intimately. I mean, how can you really just pull stuff out of thin air? I mean, to me, it's like, then I would probably be imitating somebody else. I'd rather just like, mine my own experiences than read a book and say, I'm going to do this.
mhm.
You know,
Right?
I mean, that doesn't
Yeah,
seem.
and I think one of the things that I really every time I've taught a writing class is just like we all do contain enough.
Mhm,
Like we live in the world, we see
mhm.
the world react when we think we're not reacting, and those reactions are like a whole character by themselves. So it's just about noticing a little bit more, I think.
I agree. I agree. I think we sell ourselves short, especially
Yeah.
when we're younger. And I think society works to sell us short. I
Hmm.
think, we work to tell young people that what they think and see is like, oh, when you grow up, you'll understand. Like, no, you
Right.
understand then. Nobody
Yeah.
likes that you do, or a lot of
Right.
people don't like that you do, but you
Yeah, I
do.
feel like my most vibrant self was maybe like 15 years old, So like that person was amazing. Like where did she go?
Well, she survived, so congratulations. And she's still in there.
Yeah,
I mean,
somewhere.
she is.
Mhm.
All of our selves are. I just was talking because I always talk about what I'm reading when at the beginning, and I was talking
Mhm.
about In the Dream House, which you've
Mhm.
probably read, but I had not. And I mean,
I
that's very
haven't yet.
much. Oh,
Yeah.
it's so good. I mean, I was like, could it's a she treats it as like an archive of queer domestic abuse. Like that's
Mhm.
how her way in, and so it's a lot about this abusive relationship that's the Dream House, and that a book about abuse is so like such a page turner and not like just mired in the darkness that is when you're in an abusive relationship. Um, it's something else.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
was just I was blown away by it, and
Nice.
yeah. But
Yeah, it's
I
been on my
like
list. So.
fragmented. Um, like genre, form bending. I
Mhm.
realized in our class on Sunday, I
Yeah.
realized yet again, oh, I really like this stuff. And oh,
Mhm.
okay, maybe this isn't everyone's cup of tea. It's my cup of tea.
It's my cup of tea too. I
Mhm.
um, frequently realize that, like, I started to see it as norm, especially living in the Pacific Northwest. I think that fragmented form is really celebrated, and
I can see that.
there's so many amazing people teaching it and teaching it in ways that are really profound and authentic, that
Mhm.
it's easy to forget that, like, many people don't read that a lot still. And
Right.
when they do, they're sort of like, what are you doing to me? What are you trying to say?
Mhm.
Like, oh, is this is over my head, or it's, but I think it's just as accessible. It's just like, wearing a different outfit. You just have to kind of get used to it.
Yeah, I think that's a good analogy. For me, it never feels like highfalutin or whatever. To me,
Yeah.
it feels like how my brain works.
Hmm. Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh, good, someone else is all over the place.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
remembering this and experiencing this, and they're all filtering, and certain parts are highlighted in this moment, and then
Yeah.
other parts are lost till later. And I mean,
Hmm.
so especially I feel like as I age, there's like 100 filtration systems happening, and what pops through in that moment, I don't know. It's just so, it's that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that we think in constellations, even if we want to believe that we think in, like, cohesive narratives. And when you make a cohesive narrative into a constellation, like, your story, but you put it into that form, we're mirroring the way our brains actually work, which, again, maybe is hard for our conscious mind to get used to, but it is what we're doing. We can't really get away from that, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I always find it delicious. It's like, ooh, where are you taking me? Like,
Hmm.
it's like following train tracks
That
into
is
something
true.
I haven't
You
been
have
to.
to give yourself up to it. And I think
Hmm.
you do have to have trust in the person, the
Hmm.
author, that they will deliver you.
Yeah,
There
that's true.
is that like giving of yourself over.
Hmm.
Um, but when it's successful, it's a ride.
Hmm. I
Um,
agree.
and she is very confident. She knows what she's doing.
Yay. That's
And that's like the best feeling. Like, oh,
hmm.
just take me.
Yeah. It's very relaxing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hmm.
Um,
Nice.
so now that we've talked about all the, which I think leads very well into your poem. So,
Okay.
if you're ready, go for it.
Sure. Okay. Is there anything that I should say before I start?
It's really
Or
up to you. Some people just like say nothing because they're so nervous, so they just want to get it over with. Some people talk for a while because they're so nervous they don't want to do it. And then
Mhm.
some people just are in between.
Cool. Well, I'll just say that I wrote this a really long time ago, and I rereading it and kind of cutting it down, I realized that it was still true, which is so rare for me. Usually I kind of hate my old pieces, and I hope that everybody gets the experience of reading their old work. It's hard to do. It's like very humbling.
I noticed that it was published in 2014. So I was
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
okay, this has been a while. And I was curious how you would feel reading it, not only rereading it, but reading it out loud.
Yeah, I'm excited
Oh,
actually.
good.
I'm not really nervous, but maybe I should.
Well, you're probably more experienced. Some people are like,
Mhm.
it's their first time reading their words
Yeah,
to
no,
more
that's
than
awesome.
themselves. And
Hmm.
so I'm here to just cheer.
Yeah, it's
And
so wonderful. By the way, thank you. This is so
oh,
awesome to be doing this. And usually I teach community college, so I'm usually just talking to my students. So it's just nice to be in this space. So thank you.
yeah, I'm thrilled to have you, and I'm happy to connect outside of Zoom.
Yeah, different video platform.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Well, someday real life, maybe.
yeah, maybe. Okay, awesome. So I will start with my
Okay.
little clipped version. Okay, so I write where the rocks gather on the concrete steps leading down from the front door. Rocks that sparkle black and silver like they fell out of the sky. The sky rocks gather in between the porch boards. I pull my dress out to fill it with rocks. I gather them up, fold my dress in, carry them inside, and drop them in old peanut butter jars, while Dad unrolls the plastic wrap around little snakes of cocaine and flushes powder down the toilet, sliding his razors, needles, and pipes into the bathroom trash and telling me, "Don't get into this, all right?" When he asks me, "Did you clog up the toilet with those rocks?" and I shake my head, he looks hard at me and says, "When you lie, people forget how to believe you." I watch my bare feet carry me past Dad, where he stands shirtless in the kitchen dropping shrimp into a boiler pot. Past him and through the screen door, down the rotting wood steps, and into the mud of our backyard, where my little brother sits scooping plants and dirt into a bowl of water. We call it pickle plant soup. If this is really a bowl of trash, instead of a delicious meal, if I really clogged the toilet rather than ditching my sky rocks just like Dad had, and if my stories were lies to Dad but true to me, then how will I find my way from out of the mud and into his world? I write from the sour. I write from the mud. I write from the body of the shrimp cooked brighter, pull the veins from its back, suck the salt from its head. I write from the suck before the afternoon storm, when the air's so hot and full, everyone says their head feels like a balloon or a bowl or an oven or a bomb. Anything filled up and ready. Then the suck, the heat pulls back, the rain falls. I write from the hum of the oven vent, sucking up smoke from cornbread, dropped into melted lard and fried in a cast iron pan. I write from Dad's pontoon boat, my hand reaching down to touch the back of a manatee rising up from the river. And what does the manatee do when a cottonmouth streams past it? Do cottonmouths even bite the slow gray creatures? Or do they save their angry venom for humans alone, for strangers dipping into their liquid worlds? I write from that bite. I write from that burn. I write from the fireflies, limp little bodies stumped out of my jar after just one night of light. I write from the house fire that sends bends of smoke down our street when the little green house on the corner turns black, then gray, then dissolves altogether and floats across our front porch. I write from the mouth of the yard, on my back, sinking down, mud deep. I write from that burning body, 4 years old or 7 years old or 10 years old, crawling out from under a fire, crawling through mud and dry grass, snacking on pickle plants, smacking away palmetto bugs, pushing fingers down past that hot top layer of wet sand, past the cool dark mud, down into the red clay, and finding something to build with.
Yay!
I'd clap too, just for the extra music, but I only have one hand.
I love it. I had a drug paraphernalia in my early life, so all of that really resonated with me. And it was interesting listening to you read it because when you said when I read "Don't get into this," I read it as "Don't get into drugs." But then when you read it, I read it as "Don't get into this trash. It's dangerous." But I was like, oh, that's really powerful because I certainly got those like, don't do this. Don't you ever do this.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
don't make the same mistakes I did.
Well, they're
and
doing
keep
it.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's of course how I heard it, but or read it. But I was like, oh, it also means, there's razor blades in here. Don't get into it. So I love that, and and then I was like, oh, I hope she keeps the line where your dad says, and I'm going to misquote him, but like, when you tell lies, we don't know when to trust you or believe you.
Yeah.
Because I do find it interesting how oftentimes grown-ups lie to children and don't really take into consideration that they don't then know when to believe the adult.
Yeah. Such a thing. And
yeah.
I think that my dad rarely was mad at me, but he had this thing when he would think that I was lying and he would say that. And I think that is really, really, if like there's one thing that made me into a person who's like obsessed with language, it was that, because it's like, I won't lie. I won't do it. But then language isn't transparent. And so like, what is a lie? And then we remember things differently every time we remember them.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it like messes with your sense of reality to work so hard to tell the truth, I think. But it's also kind of like, it's kind of like a drug in itself, in that, like, or like maybe like a, like doing mushrooms or something, where you just kind of go deeper and deeper and deeper into this really like not tangible thing, and then you can kind of break through to different truths and different ideas about what that even
When you
means.
play with that with your language, what
Mm-hmm.
is this pickle plant? I think that made the cut. Is it poison? Is it
Yeah,
food? It's
yeah.
both. And I think that's often true of truth itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it a lie? Is it true? Who are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Because from their perspective, and I think that's something that kept me from writing memoir for so long, was because I felt like I needed to have some kind of like indisputable truth,
Mm-hmm.
and I knew that didn't exist.
Yeah.
I knew that up front.
Mm-hmm.
No one was going to agree with my version of the events.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I don't really know if I want to get into that. Then I realized that even writing for myself has value, because I am finding what's true for me. And I don't know if you have this experience, but it's like when it's true, it feels right in my body.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like, oh, that's what I felt. Like, that's what happened. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
most validating feeling because, of course, our body keeps the score. There's a whole book about it.
Yeah.
But it's real. I
Yeah.
feel it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of like something that I've feel like I have to learn over and over, and also assert over and over, is just that there are multiple truths and they can conflict, and that's really hard. And but it's also, I think, just like true. And like, so like me and somebody else, like somebody from my past might be watching this right now and they might be like, oh my God, that is not what happened, and that might
Mm-hmm.
be completely true, but it doesn't really matter, because it's like we tell ourselves stories, and if they feel true to us, and they mean something, and we have to like be with that at least for a little while.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Um, I had a thought and now it's gone. So I'm just going to say another part that I love that I was glad made the cut was the cottonmouth and the manatee.
Oh yeah, I love manatees so much.
Because that really, yeah, I do. I've never seen one ever. Maybe if I have, it was like in captivity. So I don't really count it. So, but just do they bite them? Like, I just assume they
No,
don't,
I should look it up. It's just
you
one of
know?
those things that like I've enjoyed wondering, but I haven't like
Right? You don't want
Googled.
to know. Because I was like, I don't think they did. Because I would imagine that a manatee's skin would be too thick or too,
Yeah,
impenetrable because
and it
they're
would be like
so that
so
way.
sad.
They
People,
just kind of move through
yeah.
life like as if none of you matter.
Mm-hmm.
When I watch videos, I just think of their sort of like, I don't know, their prehistoricness. Like they're just here and hopefully they
Mm-hmm.
will remain. And a
Yeah.
cottonmouth is nothing to them.
Yeah, I hope so. Like,
I hope so
I,
too.
my dad ran these swim with the manatee tours for a few years, and
Your dad is a Renaissance man.
very interesting. But I like miss that. I miss being there. We would visit the state park. We moved up to North Florida, but would visit the state park down in Central Florida a couple
Mm-hmm.
times through my childhood. And there's something just really special about the critters in Florida in general, but
Mm-hmm.
those creatures, they do feel like they belong to something older. Like it
Mm-hmm.
feels like you're like really with them. And
Mm-hmm.
I think Florida gets kind of, it's sort of like Panama City and Floribama are like what we think, and like all the bad political decisions and stuff,
Yeah,
we like think
definitely.
of Florida in
Yeah.
like a
And
certain
I'm
way, but
happy to
like,
hear a different perspective. To be honest, I'm always
yeah.
happy to have new, because people live there. People live there and love it,
Yeah, and
and
there's
it's so
so much
reductive
beauty.
to be
Yeah.
like, they're all like this. I mean,
Hmm.
I live in LA, so there's a lot of that going on with LA as well, but I don't care.
Right.
And I assume they also don't care,
Hmm.
but it's just like, it's important to remember that each place, just like each person, has something
Yeah, and
about them.
yeah, and quite a lot. And like, just I'm the first person to say a lot of mean things about my home state too in certain conversations, just because there are parts that affected me, and I think that's
Sure.
really it. It's like you think about the things that affected you, but I do think that there's something really special about like the land
Mm-hmm.
there and the creatures there, and the way that many people who you wouldn't expect really truly take care of those creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And like, there's something, I haven't really seen that anywhere else except maybe Louisiana, which is almost the same thing as Florida.
Don't let them hear you say that. But they would disagree strongly. Um, yeah. I mean I can see that. It's a unique place, and I would go for the critters. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've been to Florida, but like to, Naples and Orlando, so I don't really count it
Oh,
because I
they're
don't.
beautiful too.
Okay, well, I just was like
Yeah.
rolling through, and I just
Mm-hmm.
don't feel like I want to go someplace. I like to just kind of be
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and see the place and eat and walk around, and like, it's harder
Right.
for me in these really hot, humid places.
That's true. I feel like walking through a place is like how you experience
Yeah,
it. Like
yeah.
I love that. And the state park where he worked was right outside of Orlando.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so gosh, it makes me actually want to go there, which I definitely usually don't feel this time of year because it's really hot.
No, definitely no. Like, I have a social media friend who's always posting pictures. It looks beautiful, but it's like 100 and the humidity. Like,
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm from
And the
here.
giant flying cockroaches that
See, that's rough for me. I mean,
yeah.
that I will fully like. I'm fine with tarantulas because I'm a desert person, but
Hmm.
those are like, and I know tarantulas freak people out, but
Hmm. I'm one of them. Yeah.
yeah. But I'm like, whatever. They're fuzzy. They don't.
Hmm.
They're scared of us.
Hmm. Hmm.
It just goes to show you when you're exposed to something regularly, you understand it better and you fear it less. Hopefully,
Totally. Or you fear it more. Like I've broken a million brooms attacking flying cockroaches because they're completely harmless, but there's just
they are
something
harmless. Yeah,
unnerving about like,
because they have them in Hawaii, where I've
yeah.
spent a lot of time. And the first time I was like, "Oh, these are not like the ones we have at home. Like, what is happening here?"
They're like
Um,
birds.
yeah, they make noise. Ah,
They have a
um,
smell. It's like,
and they're so indestructible.
hmm.
Like they're not like manatees, but they also sort of are, and like they do not care for us.
Hmm.
We are just like collateral. Like we don't mean anything to them. And I think there is
Hmm.
something about when you encounter a creature that is like not intimidated, not
Yeah.
bothered.
I love that way of looking at cockroaches. That's like really lovely, and I'll try really hard for the rest of my life to
Because
be
I
on
always
that.
feel like they're just like, you're gonna try to kill me with that shoe, but
Yeah.
even if you're successful, there's like a million more of me. Just
Hmm.
right beyond here that you're
Yeah, and
seeing
probably you
me.
won't be successful because like I will win. Like
Yeah, like you won the battle, but I'm definitely gonna win the war. I mean,
hmm.
that's just how I feel about them.
Hmm.
Which is a tangent, but those were the like three moments that really. I mean, I loved it all, but like just the manatee and the cottonmouth. I also love water, and I felt the water, which I think
Oh,
is a
yeah.
hard thing to do, to
Hmm.
feel the sort of movement of water.
Hmm.
Um, and I did like, and I've been in water when something has swum by me that I don't want it to be there, you know. And that feeling too of like, okay, just don't get me, don't
Yeah,
get me thing.
there's something really powerful, and like it's like I wouldn't recommend it, and I like won't take I won't take my children to the real beach, like like the Florida beach. Like they
Oh yeah.
go and put their feet
Hmm.
in the Pacific Northwest, but like even then I'm kind of like this like these water spaces are like I feel like so much not my home,
Mm.
and I feel like such an invader, you know?
Mm. Hmm.
And of course, when I was a kid, like I was just dropped everywhere into every water space, and just had to flail and figure it
I'm
out.
still like that.
Yeah,
I'm still that
and
person. Oh,
I think it's
I can swim
wonderful.
in that. I will
Yeah.
go in there.
Hmm.
And then later I may have regrets. But I am
Yeah.
like absolutely, the water feels like home
Oh,
to
that's
me.
wonderful.
So I think whenever I read about it, I feel like, and I know people who do not like the ocean, and I get it,
Hmm.
but I don't, I love it. I
Yeah,
love it. And
I love
there
being
are
around
creatures,
it.
so many creatures in there.
So many, and
And we
so
have
many that
stingrays
can
where
like
we are.
hurt you, and like
Stingrays, jellyfish. Oh, suddenly I can't hear you. How bizarre. You went away. Can you hear me? Okay, there you go.
Okay.
It's so weird. It's like, okay, what were you saying?
Oh, I just think it's so hard to like find ways, or it's a good challenge maybe to find ways to like respect creatures in their home
Mm-hmm,
when like you can't breathe in their home.
mm-hmm,
And so like what does it mean to like enter that space and also like know what kind of, danger you're in. I was swimming in the Dominican Republic this summer and I went like way deeper than I usually am comfortable going because I've been around so many sharks in my life and I've been surrounded by dolphins, which is lovely, but it's also a little bit scary. When there's like a lot of them, they're stronger than you and
they
like
are,
you
but
don't know how they see you, you know.
no, but I feel like they're generally pretty cool.
Yeah, and
As
so
much as
far.
I can say about a creature that I cannot actually communicate with, I feel
Mm-hmm.
like they're pretty great. Like
Yeah.
whenever I see them, I feel pure joy. And I have been
Yeah.
close to them, and I feel like they're like, I don't know. Like I'm not going to get all woo woo on you, but I feel like they don't really, they like know that I'm not one
Mm-hmm.
of them,
Mm-hmm.
but also
Yeah.
not bad.
Yeah, like not threatening. Yeah.
Like I'm just here floating in the water, you know.
Hmm.
But I can see. So were there dolphins? Were there sharks? Did anything happen?
There weren't, and I asked and then looked it up on the internet just to find out like how much danger am I putting myself in. Was going out like every day and getting really deep, which is something that usually kind of like scares me. Like when I can't see my feet because the water's dark, it like I can't even do that in a lake. Like there's definitely a prehistoric monster at the bottom of every
Mm.
lake that will come up and get me if I am too close. And like, but
If you're
like,
too close to its doorway, its
yeah,
portal,
well, yeah,
I'm
will
not gonna
come
like that.
get me. but but I just felt like, even like it's sort of like you have to surrender a little bit. There's something like really interesting about that surrender. Like I'm here. The only way that I can be respectful of this place is to just know how much less power I have than when I'm on the land, you know?
Absolutely. You are not
And
in charge.
yeah, it's so interesting.
I love that. Like all of that I love. And I think so many people die in the water because they actually think they have power
Yeah.
and they don't. And people are overtaken, I think, in joy and this feeling of communion and hanging out with their friends and not thinking about tides or rips or any of these things. And then
Mm-hmm.
they're, so it is important to know your limits
Mm-hmm.
and to know you can get back, which
Mm-hmm.
is something that I always am talking about with my own children. Like it's easy to swim out. It's usually much, much easier to swim out because the currents are going to pull you that way. And it's more difficult to swim in. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to do it all with, you have to have real respect, I
Mm-hmm.
think, for
Yeah.
for it and the power of it,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely. Which
which I
kind
try
of
to
goes
do.
back to fragmented writing.
Yes, here we are. We're making a case for fragmented writing. That's
That's
what
right.
we're
That was
doing
all of it.
here.
That's what that was about.
Um, well, it was just I. It's one of those things that fragmented writing. My love of the ocean. It's one of those things that is just kind of me, and I
Hmm.
don't really think about it. Like it's just how we started the conversation. I think that is one of the great challenges and gifts of writing memoir is
Hmm.
these things that I'm like, oh, this is just me,
Hmm.
and having to like unpack them or untangle them and realize what is it? Who am I? Where do I come from? And how has that affected me and the beauty and the grief of that? There's
Yeah,
both.
I think that's super true. And I think like similarly, like there's just this level of like surrender to like even if I'm wrong, I'm gonna like kind of tell it the way that feels okay in my
Mm-hmm.
body. Like
Yeah,
it's just,
yeah.
this
And what
is
is wrong? I mean,
yeah.
I think we definitely have to. We do let go of that eventually. I think
Hmm.
like you say, if it feels right in your body, it feels true. And I have to say, like your dad, he comes off. He loves you, like that
Oh
comes
yeah.
through.
He was
And
like
yeah,
amazing,
yeah,
super great dad. Very, I mean, had his
yeah,
history before I
yeah,
was born, just like we all do when we have kids,
yeah.
and um, was just doing like what I think we all do again, is like we do these things and we tell our kids like, I'm making this mistake basically so you don't have to, even if I'm still making it. And that's all fucked up in a lot of ways, but also the intention is to kind of constantly save children from a darkness that we know too well, you know.
Yeah. And I was in a situation where, I had a mother who was very much devoted to truth because she had been told so many lies, which sometimes the truth was too much for me to handle as a small child.
Mm-hmm.
But she was always trying to tell me everything she'd done wrong, everything, in the hopes that I wouldn't make the same mistakes as her. And it comes from a place of love,
Yeah, I think so too.
even
Still
though
can cause pain.
you like want to stop, But I didn't have that awareness until not that long ago
Mm-hmm.
that it was too much for me.
Wow.
It
Big.
was just love.
Mm-hmm.
That's what love was. A
Yeah.
lot, and so I um I think part of the reason I love these poems so much and these conversations is I love hearing about people's childhoods. I don't think people talk about them very much because as we get older, it feels like it's in the rear view and that it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really affect us. But I would say that it still deeply affects me and the way I am in the world.
Absolutely. I think we kind of, sequester them off as like therapy
Yeah,
topics.
yeah.
But I think that it's like, I mean, I've been challenging myself more and more to be as honest as possible with people I know very little about like my past, because it informs the way that I talk. It informs
Hmm.
my vibe. I live in Seattle and I'm from Florida, so like I rub everyone the wrong way.
I have lived in Seattle, so I understand. Even though I was not from Florida, I was not from Seattle. It was
Yeah.
like, oh no, I'm way
Yeah.
too Southern California.
Hmm. Hmm. But I think it's there's a level of vulnerability, and of course it's like a balance, right? Because you don't want to be like, so
Yeah.
let me tell you about my abuse, like.
I know. You don't want to trauma dump in conversation. So anyway,
Mhm. Yeah.
here, yeah,
But
agreed.
yeah, but I love these too. I think it's so cool that you're doing this, and I've really the ones that I've had a chance to catch have been like so amazing, and like I love the conversations that you have with people. It's so wonderful. People who are
Thank
watching
you.
should totally all do it.
I thank you. I agree. You should all totally do it. Thank you, Asha. Yeah, I think also like especially in this moment, I think it's true always, but the personal is political, and I think many people have. I realize now, like as the life that I have, that I'm married and I have two kids, and we look very kind of like good or
Hmm.
happy or whatever, and it's people make assumptions about
Hmm.
me, about us, and I feel like it's important to say like, oh no, yes, I'm here now, but I grew up surrounded by drugs and alcohol. I was raped. Like these are things that definitely inform
Yeah.
the decisions I make in my life and my politics and what I want for everyone.
Hmm.
I want everyone to have food and a place to live and healthcare
Yeah. And
because I do.
yeah. It also gave you like a lot of information that's really valuable, I think. Like,
Mm,
I think we tend to look at people who have difficult past as if there's some kind of brokenness or there's a
for
lack
sure.
of value or something. And I remember when the pandemic first started, I was thinking, I come from like hurricane country.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember talking to my work and saying, would y'all like me to tell you what we did in a crisis when I was growing up? Because this is a collective crisis and we could come together. And they were sort of like, let's, that coming together thing.
Mm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
because it was a different kind of crisis, but it was also Seattle. And that's, people go
Mm-hmm.
into their little bubbles.
They
It's part
definitely
of the
do. Yeah, I couldn't take it
um,
there.
yeah.
I really couldn't. I was incredibly depressed.
Hmm.
It was not a good mix. It was
Yeah.
just like, oh, and I wasn't smoking pot and drinking coffee. So I wasn't self-medicating. So I was just like, I gotta get out of here. I gotta go. It was
I hear you.
amazing to me. Like the experience of being like, oh yeah, I really can't live anywhere. Because I had this illusion of like, I can live anywhere, I can do anything, I can, I was like, nope, I
Not
cannot.
Seattle.
Nope, I can't live anywhere. I'm
Yeah.
not this like warrior who can do it. I mean, sure, I guess if I had to, but I don't have to.
You
So,
don't have to.
yeah.
It's that's one really amazing thing about not being where we used to be or where we're from anymore.
Yeah.
So we don't have to.
Yeah, we're not children. We
Yeah.
actually have choices.
Hmm.
And that we need to remind ourselves of that and the
Yeah,
power of those choices. Yeah. Um,
absolutely.
but not to put too much shade on Seattle. It's hilarious because the person who's
Oh,
coming next week is my friend from Seattle,
well,
who
awesome. Double it
who
up.
was like, remember when you left and was like, you could also come. I was like, no, I don't remember that, but that absolutely sounds like me.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Come with
actually
me.
like, I want Seattle. Like, Seattle is like my home. Like,
Oh,
I
it's so
love
gorgeous.
Seattle.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful.
I moved to
Yeah.
West Seattle where it's kind of beachy, and like,
Yes, it is.
I happened to like, go through the pandemic there, so it was really
Mm-hmm.
informative.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm currently in the South right now though, and it's always interesting to me because I love Seattle and I don't want to leave, but I do miss the way that people say hi
Oh.
on the street, and like
Mm-hmm.
I'm like an annoying person in Seattle because I have like real conversations with people when they're like in line.
I
And
do that. I do that. It's
yeah.
funny though because LA is a mixed bag, but I remember when I moved to Chicago, I was like, man, people are friendly. Like, do they want something? At first, it was like,
Yeah.
why is everyone saying hi? Ugh.
Yeah.
Um, and I think the Midwest is obviously not just like the South, but there is that sort of like conviviality or that like, you know, camaraderie of, and it is nice.
Hmm. Yeah,
I enjoy
it's
it.
valuable. And for rural America often is seen as not valuable. So it's nice to highlight the values that,
Mm-hmm.
there are so many. And
Yes.
I often wish that I could kind of just like bring a little bit of like New Orleans or, my hometown, Pensacola, to Seattle,
Oh,
but leave the parts I don't like behind.
hmm Yeah,
You
you have
know.
to hold like a Pensacola salon. I would like to see how that. I think
Really
that's $1 million
small.
idea. So you can have
Yeah.
it. But like, can you imagine just trying to promote something like that in Seattle? People would be like, "What is this? We like weird, but this is not."
Right. And also, what is that word Pensacola? What does that mean? Is that a
Uh-huh.
place? Is that a person?
I know
Like,
that's a place. My dad
yeah.
was based there, so I know it's a
Oh,
place. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
like Pensacola. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
trying to. I love actually this idea of like taking the pieces that you love about Florida because I do think some of our problems, like our large problems, come from this kind of defensiveness of
Yeah.
people wanting others to understand that what they love has worth.
Yeah. I like that.
And it's like, okay, we all have worth.
Yeah. It's all valuable, and there's more. We have more alike than we do
We
have
do.
difference.
We
We just
definitely do.
are so polarized, and but if you go deep, the values are really similar. Like, it's just wanting the sense of belonging and connection, and it's just how do we get it, and how has our have our parents gotten it, and how did our grandparents get it? And if we live in a community that's really established, sometimes those traditions aren't as like welcoming, I
Hmm
think. And just like
That's true.
figuring out, like parsing out, like, why is it that I feel unwelcome, and why do I feel the need to make other people unwelcome is really, but I think that everybody deserves that sense of belonging, like every single person. And
Yeah.
it
And
does
so
seem
much
like a
sadness comes from
thing.
the lack of it.
Yeah.
So much like epic sadness that and some of it turns, violence towards yourself and some of it's violence outwards. This kind
Yeah.
of um, wanting acceptance.
Hmm. I think you're right.
Well,
And I think
we've
these
solved
poems
the
kind
world's
of are the antidote.
problems.
Yeah, no, through an I am from poem.
I mean, I think it's a great
I first
icebreaker. I
saw
feel like
myself.
I know you so much better. And I'm grateful that you joined me
Hmm.
and that you bravely joined me because I put out the invitation. Everyone's like, that sounds nice. Vanessa is joining me in months, but
Yay.
I am grateful for
Nice.
this opportunity to get to know you better because
Hmm.
Asha and I are in a writing class together, like a year-long writing class. So we see each other and we share writing, but we don't talk that much.
It's true.
We're
We
trying
really
to
don't.
remedy that. We're trying to
Yeah.
remedy that. Thank you,
Hmm.
Corinne. But we haven't.
Hmm.
So I appreciate this opportunity. I felt like we would have a great conversation, but it's nice when you're right.
Yeah, no, and thank you. I really appreciate it too. It was so great to honestly, like it probably just sounds weird, but it's just so nice to have an excuse to look at some kind of art that I created a long time ago and like hold it up in front of an audience. Like I just sort of want everyone to do that. It's almost like I want to go read my like work from when I was 12 or 13, you know, because it's like this other part, it's like a gone part of you that gets to come back for a minute. It's kind of
Yeah, I
nice.
love that. I think it is
Yeah.
nice to have an excuse to
Hmm.
re-examine something.
Yeah, and thank you. I've really liked talking with you. It was fun.
Oh, good. I had fun too. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you on Zoom soon.
Yes, definitely. And bye bye, everyone.
Okay, bye.